My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 36 years old, and on the evening I returned home earlier than planned, I found my grandmother lying on the cold tile floor of the kitchen. The lights in the house were off. So was the heating, and in the refrigerator, packed with expensive food for Christmas dinner, stood a single container labeled Mom. Empty. Absolutely clean, as if it had been washed, just to emphasize that it was not needed. 3 days later, my family returned from their vacation in Miami, loud, tanned, and pleased with themselves. Their laughter cut short the moment they saw the house. Silence. An empty room, and my lawyer's business card sitting on the kitchen table. Mom screamed, and that was the first sound they had uttered in a long time that carried any real meaning. But to understand that scream, you have to go back to the moment I first turned the key in that door. It was December 23rd. I had been driving for almost 4 hours. In the trunk, thermoses of soup, homemade broth, butter, fresh vegetables. Everything she loved. Everything she could eat. I always cooked for her myself. It was the only role my family allowed me to have. Evelyn will bring food, my mother used to say, as if she were ordering catering. Not a daughter, not a granddaughter. A function. I had long since stopped expecting them to see anything more in me. In families like mine, you learn to make yourself useful where you are at least not ignored. And for me, that place was the kitchen, and the chair next to the only woman who considered me important. Grandmother. So I kept coming back. Time and time again. Not for them. Never for them. When I approached the house, the first thing I noticed was the darkness. The porch light was off. She never turned it off. I knocked. Silence. I unlocked the door with my key. The cold hit my face immediately. Not just a chill, the true cold of emptiness, as if the house had been abandoned. Grandma? I called out. It's me. I brought soup. There was no answer. But it was not the silence of an empty house. It was the silence of a place where something had happened. I set the bags down in the kitchen. I saw a stack of mail. Beneath it, the corner of a white card. I didn't pick it up then. And later, I hated myself for it. For a long time, something pulled me into the living room, and that's where I found her. She was lying on the floor. Time stopped. I remember the pattern of the rug. I remember how her sweater was pulled up. One slipper had fallen off. She was lying on her side next to the cold radiator, and she looked small, too small. I fell to my knees beside her. I'm here. I'm here. Her lips were dry, her skin like paper. When I squeezed her hand, the skin remained pinched. Dehydration. I knew that state. I had seen it in others, but never in her. Evelyn, she whispered, I'm with you. She squeezed my sleeve, feebly, but she held on. She was wearing her festive blouse, the very one she put on when expecting guests. And in that moment, I understood. Those were the last clothes she had been dressed in, and that had been days ago. A glass stood nearby, overturned, with a dried trace of water. She had tried to reach it and couldn't. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I needed to give her something. I opened the refrigerator. It was full. Steaks, wine, cheeses, appetizers, holiday food for them. And on the second shelf, a container labeled Mom. I picked it up. It was empty. Not just empty, washed, clean, abandoned, like a symbol. And in that moment, something inside me became very quiet. Not loud, not furious, just cold. My phone vibrated. I texted my mother. Grandma is lying on the floor. She is dehydrated. How long has she been alone? The reply came 20 minutes later. 20. We are in Miami until the 26th. Vanessa arranged everything. She's just seeking attention. Evelyn, don't disturb us. I reread the message twice. Then I put the phone down, and I didn't pick it up again. Because sometimes an answer comes in the form of silence. And that is enough. I returned to my grandmother and made a decision. I would not leave her here. I took off my coat, wrapped her in it, lifted her. She weighed almost nothing. It was a moment I will never forget. I carried her out to the car, buckled her in, and then I saw it. On her wrist, bruises, fingerprints. I closed the door, got behind the wheel, and for 3 seconds, I couldn't move. Then I drove. At the hospital, everything moved fast. IVs, tests. This hasn't been just a few days, the doctor said. This has been months. Months. Who was taking care of her? I couldn't answer. because the truth was worse than any answer. At 3 in the morning, she was sleeping, and I was sitting in the hallway, and for the first time in my life, I realized a simple truth. I was not less important. They just needed someone who could be ignored. And I fit the role perfectly. But that was over. In the morning, I found the card. A lawyer. I called, and what I heard changed everything. Your grandmother set up a trust 8 months ago, he said. You are the sole trustee, not your mother, not your sister. You. I remained silent. And one more thing, she left a letter. Only to be given if you came back for her. I closed my eyes. He read the lines. They visit. You care. Those are different things. And in that moment, everything fell into place. But that was only the beginning. Because next, I learned that money was being moved, systematically, into my sister's account. And in 4 days, the final transfer was scheduled. A large one, wiping out everything. They were planning to take it all and walk away. But now they had a problem. I could no longer be ignored. I returned to the house, no longer as a granddaughter, as someone with legal authority. And I began looking. Cameras, recordings, receipts, transfers, and the truth began to form. Cold, clear, undeniable. And when they returned, they thought everything would be as before. But waiting on the kitchen table was a business card and a new reality, where I was no longer convenient. I was dangerous. And that was only the beginning. I didn't call them, didn't warn them, didn't write a single word. Sometimes the best way to win is to let people walk quietly into their own trap. The house greeted me with silence. But now it was a different kind of silence. Not empty, purposeful. I turned on the lights in every room, as if returning a voice to the house. Then I sat at the kitchen table, that very same one, and laid out everything I already knew. Bank statements, screenshots of transfers, dates, video from the door camera, the empty container labeled Mom, and the letter. I read it once more, slowly. The handwriting trembled, but the meaning was crystal clear. Don't let them turn me into a number. I didn't. The first thing I did was call the lawyer. We are blocking the transfer, I said. Then we act now, he replied. I will prepare the notices for the bank. As the trustee, you have the right to halt the operation. But they will try to challenge it. Let them. And Evelyn, you have to be ready for a conflict. I looked around the kitchen, at the table where I had been ignored my entire life. I've been ready for a long time. They just don't know it yet. By noon, the account was frozen. The transfer scheduled for the 29th canceled. Access credentials changed. Any transaction now required my authorization. I felt no joy, only precision, like being in a kitchen during the dinner rush. When you feel no emotion, you just do everything right. By evening, I drove to the hospital. Grandmother was more lively. Color had returned to her face. She held my hand tighter. You didn't go back home? She asked softly. I did, I replied. But now it's a different house. She looked at me intently, too intently, as if seeing beyond what I was saying. They will find out, she said. Yes, and they will be angry. I smiled. Let them. She nodded, weak, but confident. Then everything is right. They returned the next day. I heard the car before the door opened. Laughter. Voices. The noise of suitcases. We're home, my mother shouted, and fell silent. Because the lights were on. Because it was quiet. Because something was wrong. I was sitting at the table, calmly. In front of me lay the lawyer's business card. And a folder. Mother walked in first. Froze. Where is Mom? She asked. I looked at her. For a long time. Safe. What does that mean? Vanessa walked into the room, tanned, flawless, with a phone in her hand. She smiled at first, out of habit. Then she saw me, and stopped. What is going on? She asked sharply. I turned the folder toward them. This is going on. Mother stepped closer, picked up the documents, and her face began to change, slowly, as if reality were catching up to her piece by piece. What is this? She whispered. Statements, I said. Transfers. Months. Systematically. Vanessa snatched one of the pages. This is a mistake. No. I picked up my phone, played a video. On the screen, the front porch. My mother, holding shopping bags. She barely eats anyway, her voice sounded. The silence in the room grew thick. Were you recording us? Mother said sharply. No. The house was. I looked at her, and I just watched. Vanessa threw the pages onto the table. You can't prove anything. I smiled. For the first time. I already have. I pulled out another document, turned it toward them. I am the trustee. Silence. Real. Devastating. What? Mother whispered. Grandma transferred the right to manage everything to me. 8 months ago. Vanessa turned pale. That's impossible. No. It's very possible. I leaned forward, and the transfer for the 29th is canceled. That was when Mother screamed, sharply, piercingly, the way people scream when it isn't just a plan falling apart, but the certainty that no one would ever stop them. You have no right. I looked at her calmly. I do. She slammed her palm on the table. This is our family. No, I said softly. This was your resource. Silence. Vanessa took a step back. You ruined everything. No, I answered. I stopped everything. They began speaking at the same time, accusing, making excuses, raising their voices. But I no longer heard them, because for the first time in my life, their words meant nothing. This conversation is over, I said, and stood up. Everything else goes through the lawyer. The court trial took 3 months. 3 months of documents, expert evaluations, testimonies. A neighbor testified. The doctor confirmed her condition. The financial audit revealed everything. Every transfer, every date, every action, and most importantly, the system. It wasn't a mistake. It was a scheme. At the final hearing, the judge said one sentence. This is not negligence. This is exploitation. I didn't look at them, not once. I didn't need to. The ruling was in my favor. Complete. The house remained in the trust. The money returned. Access revoked. And most importantly, they lost the right to make any decisions regarding my grandmother. Forever. In the spring, I moved her. A small house, bright, with a kitchen where we could cook together. She sat at the table, warm, alive, real. It's nice here, she said. I placed a bowl of soup in front of her. That very same kind. Because you are here, I replied. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made everything worth it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. No, I only regret one thing, that I didn't do it sooner. But perhaps everything had to happen exactly this way, so that I would finally understand. Love is not words, not roles, not labels. Love is action. And on the day I lifted her from that cold floor, I chose, for the first time, not to be convenient. I chose to be a person who does not step back. And that turned out to be enough to change everything.